In the bitter winter of 1917, as mud and blood become one in the trenches of northeastern France, 5 soldiers stand before their command. Their crime? Choosing life over glory. Their sentence? Death by an enemy's bullet. But this is not a simple tale of military justice. This is where our story begins. They call this sector Bingo Crépuscule, where hope goes to die. 5 men, 5 self-inflicted wounds, 5 different dreams of home. First, there's Manech French, barely 20, a carpenter's son from Brittany. They call him Cornflower for those innocent blue eyes. Before the war, he carved wood and loved a girl named Mathilde. The horror of the trenches broke something in his gentle soul. One cold morning, he raised his hand above the trench line, letting a German bullet pierce his flesh. A desperate lottery for life. Then, Benoit Notre Dame, a farmer whose hands once coaxed life from soil, now forced to take it. His land, his family, called to him. In the quiet of dawn, he orchestrated his escape, a self-inflicted wound that should have been his ticket home. The earth was in his blood, the trenches were his hell. Next, Angel Bassignano, the urban criminal with a silver tongue and a heart full of love for a prostitute named Tina Lombardi. In the streets of Paris, he danced with danger. In the trenches, he chose a different dance, a calculated shot through his own hand, a gangster's gamble for freedom. Francis Gaynard, 6 Sous, they call him, once a welder for the state railways. He knew a lot about weapons and war, but not an orator when it comes to speaking about it. When he froze in front of a kid, he knew his time was up. So he sacrificed his hand for what he thought was a ticket home. And lastly, Bestoche, the carpenter whose joints were as true as his heart. His letters to a prostitute named Veronique were his only light in the darkness. He made his choice when he mistook mice for wood and nails, earning a court-martial. 5 men, 5 wounds, 5 tickets home. Or so they thought. But Bingo Crépuscule had other plans for these soldiers who dared to choose life. Their punishment is as cruel as it is unique. The French command decides, let them face death in no man's land, that hell between trenches where nothing grows but corpses. So, on January 7th, 1917, they are marched out in the freezing dawn, 5 men in a line, their wounds still fresh. Bingo Crépuscule lives up to its name. Through the mist and barbed wire, these 5 men are pushed into the void. The Germans watch through their scopes. The French wait behind their walls of mud. Snow begins to fall, painting everything white, a blank canvas for the blood to come. But fate has a strange way of playing with military orders. As shells begin to fall, and the ground itself seems to heave with artillery fire, these 5 men, each carrying their own story, their own love, their own reason for choosing life, disappear into the chaos of war. 3 years later, in the French countryside of Brittany, Mathilde, stubborn, determined, and walking with a limp since childhood, refuses to believe what everyone tells her, that her fiancé Manech is dead. Mathilde knows she would feel it if Manech were dead, and she will move heaven and earth to find him. This is where Mathilde's story begins. Like a private detective of the heart, she begins her investigation. Each clue leads to another story, another life touched by those 5 condemned men. As she is wondering where to begin, a letter arrived from a nun, speaking of a patient. Sergeant Esperanza, a military messenger who might know something about Manech. Hope, that dangerous friend, takes root once again. The sergeant doesn't know much but tells her Manech and 3 of the men were still alive before he was wounded and taken away. He hands her the prisoners' belongings he had planned to deliver to their families, but for his poor health. Back home, Mathilde carefully sifts through the box. Each man had left a last message for his loved ones, either a letter or a treasured item. She pieces together a map from the content, and her next clues sets her planning a grueling journey to Paris. Her limp doesn't slow her determination as she prepares for Paris. Let's weave back to where it all began, to understand why Mathilde will put her frail body through this post-war chaos. Little Mathilde Donnay, orphaned at 3 when her parents' carriage plunged from a bridge into the icy waters below. That day left her with 2 things: a limp that would mark her walk forever, and the love of her Uncle Sylvain and Aunt Benedict, who raised her as their own, with the aid of her inheritance from her parents' life insurance with Pierre-Marie Rivière. In their care, she grew into a stubborn, bright-eyed, beautiful girl. Then came Manech Langenet, the carpenter's son with eyes like summer sky. They were children when they met. She was 9, and he was 10, and their friendship bloomed like wildflowers along the Brittany coast. Before the war stole him, Manech's hands did more than carve wood. They carved a space in her life that nothing else could fill. He was the one who saw past her limp, who raced her to the lighthouse anyway, who taught her that broken things could be beautiful. The one she shared secrets with in the lighthouse shadow. Her hip may be weak, but her heart beats with the strength of two people, herself and the boy who once promised to love her forever. This is why she'll push her fragile body through the ruins of post-war France. Because Manech isn't just someone she loved, he's the other half of every breath she takes. Paris opens before her like a book with torn pages. She finds Germain Pierre in a cramped office smelling of tobacco and old paper. The peerless pig they call him, a private detective who specializes in impossible cases. He takes her money and begins his dance through the underbelly of post-war France. To find Celestine Pou, the mess hall marauder, and Tina Lombardi, Angel's lady. Each lead spawns new mysteries. The bells of the small parish church rang hollow as Mathilde pressed the priest for answers about Notre Dame's wife. His response cut through her hope like a winter wind. Madame Notre Dame vanished one morning, like morning mist over the fields. But then came a letter from Véronique, Bastoche's ex-girlfriend. A woman in nun's habit ambushed her, Tina Lombardi. Her eyes burned with the same fever that drives Mathilde's, but where Mathilde seeks truth, Tina hunts vengeance. She knew things about the 5 condemned men that made Véronique's blood run cold. Tina is convinced Bastoche escaped that cursed Bingo Crépuscule with another soldier. Tina is adamant it's her angel Bassignano. Later, Pierre comes with another piece of the puzzle. He's found something interesting about Bastoche. He had a friend they called Biscuit, Gourds. Those two were master carpenters, thick as thieves before the war. But something soured between them in the trenches. The kind of bitter that only a woman's name can bring. Mathilde's mind raced. If anyone knew Bastoche's fate, it would be the wife of his former friend. The next train to Paris couldn't move fast enough. But Elodie Gourds met Mathilde's questions with a door barely opened and eyes that had seen too much, only promising to right her. In the letter, Elodie, carrying guilt like a cross, explains that Bastoche and her husband were inseparable before the war. Gourds was a kind man, but war makes desperate men of everyone. Seeing the plight of his family in his absence, hatched what he thought was a clever plan. 5 children called him Papa, though none carried his blood. For came with Marie, a widow he married. When she died, leaving him with 4 motherless children, he found Elodie, who already had a child. Gourds could father no children of his own. Nature had denied him that gift. Soldiers with 6 children were being sent home. So he convinced Bastoche, his dearest friend, to help him father a 6th child. Bastoche agreed, but fate has a cruel sense of irony. What was meant to be salvation became heir undoing. Though it was his idea, jealousy overtook Gourds. His heart turned to stone, and the trenches echoed with their silent hatred. Celestine Pou visits the house. Having found the address from the many ads Mathilde placed seeking his whereabouts, he unfolds his memories like a map. He remembers how Manech made 3 M's everywhere. He said he saw 3 of the men die. Bassignano, Notre Dame, and Gaynard. Manech was shot by the albatross while carving his MS on a tree. They shot Bastoche too. Manech was in a very bad shape but still alive when he last saw him, raising hope in Mathilde again. She believes there's a hidden code in Notre Dame's letter to his wife. But Celestine can't decode it too. He reveals that Gourds and Bastoche exchanged boots, meaning Tina is on the wrong trail. He said the young soldier with Bastoche was not Manech, killing all hope in Mathilde. Out of options, she asks Celestine to take her to where it happened, Bingo Crépuscule. A local old man tells them what he saw after the battle. She asks if the young soldier had a red glove on. The man can't remember seeing that. Her Manech would never have parted with it willingly. In its absence, she found not despair, but a whisper of hope. Later, she learns that Tina has been caught and set for the gallows. Tina Lombardi, a woman on a parallel quest, seeking vengeance for her lover Ange Bassignano. While Mathilde follows paper trails, Tina leaves bodies in her wake, executing officers responsible for the condemned men's fate. She had killed Lavry, the man who destroyed evidence of their pardon. She killed Thionville, the man who shot her angel, claiming he was canceling his French citizenship. Mathilde visits her prison. Their conversation crackles with shared understanding and stark differences. She tells her that she wanted to kill every officer who played God that day. Tina reveals she came across a nurse, Philippot, who treated the men. He claims he saw a big guy with a head wound, wearing German boots, carrying a thin-built soldier on his shoulder to a hospital. She thought it was her angel, but now she knows that's not the case. Mathilde reads Notre Dame's letter again. She calls the parish priest and asks who Notre Dame was buying his manure from. The priest tells her Notre Dame never bought manure from anyone. He prepared his own manure. Recalling how Gunther's sister silently called her, she tries the same method, and finally, the message is revealed. Notre Dame left a hidden message for his wife. She follows the clue, and it leads her to the end of the world's farm to find him. Apparently, he's not dead like everyone thought. He reveals Manech was still alive when he last saw him, but was not doing well. Bastoche had told them to split up during the chaos. Angel was killed trying to surrender to the Germans. Six Sioux was killed while pissing. Manech was carving the 3Ms when the albatross shot him, and Bastoche, but not before he crashed it. Then he got hit and fainted. When he woke up, he hid under a trapped door and watches as the war rages on. He heard Gord say Bastoche and Manech were dead. Moments later, they were also bombed, but Gord's crawled into the door before dying. Notre Dame took his boots and his tags, disguising himself as Gord's. When he came out, a man called to him, Manech. He removes Manech gloves and tags, and put them on a dead soldier, Desrochelle's Jean. He picked him up on his shoulder, felt him burning with fever. But his desire to live, to see his Mathilde again, was clear. They passed by Philippot at the hospital. But unfortunately, the hospital was attacked and the place exploded. He barely survived and went to Bernay to meet his family, who had deciphered his code. Mathilde's hope is dashed again. This was her last hope. But the universe works in mysterious ways. When all hope was lost, a letter arrives from none other than Jean-Pierre. Manech is alive. Mathilde can barely hold herself. Yes, he's alive but has lost his memory. Living in Milleforêt. His adopted mother, Mrs. Desrochelles, just died. Charlotte had visited her to deliver the sad news of her son, Jean, passing, her only child. He informed her that another soldier, a young soldier who had lost his memory, had taken her son's tag number, assuming his identity. So the grieving mother saw a chance to replace her dead son. Mathilde prepares herself as a lady would to meet her fiancé again. Here, working with just as he did before the war, is Manech. He doesn't remember her, doesn't remember their love, the promises they made, but he's alive. And for Mathilde, that's enough. Because some loves are patient enough to begin again, strong enough to rebuild memory by memory, gentle enough to heal what war has broken. In the end, it wasn't just Manech she found, it was the truth of that day in Bingo Crépuscule, the fates of 5 men who chose life, and the power of a love that refused to accept death as an answer. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.